A seat and water. Please, sit.
Thank you. Here, you must be thirsty.
Thank you.
It's safe, I promise.
I believe you.
Title: She expected torture. I offered her a seat and water. The interrogation room was exactly how movies like to show it: a metal table, 2 chairs, a dull light hanging above, and walls that seemed to swallow sound. Most people who entered that room expected the worst. When the door opened that evening, the woman who walked in looked exactly like someone who had already prepared herself for pain. Her name was Elena Carter. 2 officers escorted her in. Her hands were cuffed, and her eyes kept moving around the room, calculating every corner, every shadow. She had clearly watched enough crime shows to imagine what was about to happen. I was already sitting there. But instead of shouting questions or slamming a file on the table like most interrogators did, I simply stood up. "Please," I said calmly, pulling the chair out for her. "Have a seat." She looked confused. People usually looked confused when they met me in that room. The officers removed her cuffs and left. The heavy door shut behind them with a dull click. For a moment neither of us spoke. She sat slowly, still suspicious. I poured a glass of water and slid it across the table toward her. "You must be thirsty." She stared at the glass like it was some kind of trick. "I'm not stupid," she said after a moment. "I didn't say you were." "You're going to start yelling eventually," she added. "They always do." I leaned back in my chair. "Actually," I replied, "I was planning on talking." She narrowed her eyes. "Talking?" "Yes." A long silence filled the room. Finally, she picked up the glass of water and drank half of it in one go. Her hands were trembling slightly. That told me more than any file could. Elena Carter had been arrested 3 hours earlier. According to the report, she had been caught leaving a warehouse that contained stolen electronics worth nearly $500,000. Security guards had stopped her before she reached the parking lot. To the arresting officers, it looked simple: warehouse robbery. But the moment I looked at the case file, something didn't add up. The warehouse break-in had been extremely professional: security cameras disabled, alarm system bypassed, entry made through a service panel that only trained technicians usually knew about. Yet the person caught leaving the building was a woman with no criminal record. No prior arrests. No gang connections. No known experience with security systems. Which meant one of 2 things. Either Elena Carter was secretly a mastermind, or she was being used. She finished the water and placed the glass back on the table. "All right," she said cautiously. "What's the game?" "No game," I replied. "I just want to understand what happened." "You already know what happened," she said bitterly. "Your people caught me." "Yes," I said. "Leaving the warehouse." She smirked slightly. "See? Easy case." I folded my hands. "You know what's strange though?" She didn't answer. "The security system was disabled by someone who clearly knew what they were doing," I continued. "Professional level." Still silence. "And yet," I said, tapping the file gently, "you're a graphic designer." Her eyes flickered for a split second. A tiny reaction. But I saw it. That reaction told me I was getting close. "I freelanced," she said quietly. "Exactly." I leaned forward slightly. "So tell me something, Elena." She looked up. "Who actually planned the break-in?" She laughed suddenly. But the laugh sounded forced. "You think I'm going to betray my partners just because you offered me water?" "I think," I said calmly, "you're not the kind of person who belongs in prison." Her laughter stopped. For the first time, her expression softened just a little. "Nice speech," she said. "But you don't know me." "No," I admitted. "But I know fear." Her jaw tightened. And you were terrified when you walked into this room. She looked away. People who expect torture usually have something to hide. But sometimes, they're just afraid of what will happen if they speak. 5 minutes passed without either of us speaking. Silence can be more powerful than questions. Eventually she broke it. "You're different," she said quietly. "How so?" "You're not trying to scare me." I shrugged. Fear doesn't work very well. "So what does?" "Respect." She studied my face carefully. "Why?" "Because when people feel respected," I said, "they usually tell the truth." Her fingers slowly traced the rim of the empty glass. Then she asked something unexpected. "What happens if I tell you everything?" "That depends," I said honestly. "On what?" "Whether you're the criminal or the victim." Her breathing slowed. Then she leaned back in the chair. "You already know the answer," she said softly. "Maybe," I replied. "But I'd like to hear it from you." Another long pause. Then finally, she spoke. "It started 3 months ago," Elena said. "I had a client." "What kind?" "Logo design. Branding. Website graphics. Normal work." "Yes." She rubbed her forehead. "At first it was normal." "What changed?" He started asking strange questions. "Like what?" "Questions about buildings." I raised an eyebrow. "Buildings?" "Yes." "Layouts. Security cameras. Emergency exits." "And you answered?" "I thought it was for a project," she said defensively. "He said he was designing a safety guide." "What was his name?" She hesitated. "That's the problem." "What do you mean?" "I never met him in person." "Online client?" "Yes." "Email?" "Encrypted messaging app." That made things interesting. "What about payment?" I asked. "Wire transfers." "Large ones?" She nodded slowly. "Too large." "How large?" $10,000 for one design job. Now we were getting somewhere. "And when did you realize something was wrong?" Her eyes dropped to the table. "When he asked me to visit the warehouse." "You went there willingly?" I asked. "I thought I was photographing it for a design reference." "And the security system?" "He told me to take pictures of it." "And you did?" "I needed the money," she whispered. I stayed quiet. After a moment she continued. 2 weeks later he contacted me again. "What did he want?" "He said someone would pick up a package from the warehouse." "And your job?" "To open a side door." I exhaled slowly. "And that's when security caught you." She nodded. "You see," she said. "Simple case." "No," I replied. She looked up. "That's not simple." "Why not?" "Because the person who hired you planned everything. And they made sure you were the only one who could be caught." Her eyes widened slightly. "You mean?" "Yes," I said. "You were the scapegoat." For the first time since entering the room, Elena looked genuinely shocked. "They set me up?" "It looks that way." "But why?" "Because if the police catch someone," I explained, "it's better if that someone is a freelancer with no connections." Her hands started shaking again. "So I'm going to prison for someone else's crime?" "Not necessarily." Her eyes locked onto mine. "What do you mean?" "It depends on whether you're willing to help us." She swallowed. "Help how?" "Find the person who hired you." She laughed bitterly. "I told you, I don't even know who they are." "You know more than you think." "How?" "You have the messages." Her face changed instantly. You deleted them? Yes. From the app? Yes. That doesn't mean they're gone. Hope flickered across her expression. You can recover them? Maybe. And if you do? Then we find the real criminals. She leaned forward. And what happens to me? I held her gaze. That depends on whether you were a willing partner. Or someone who made a terrible mistake. The room went silent again. Finally she said quietly. I never wanted to steal anything. I believe you. Why? Because criminals don't walk into interrogation rooms expecting torture. Her lips twitched slightly. So what happens now? I stood up. Now, I said, we bring in the cyber team. And if they find the messages? Then, I replied, opening the door. The people who used you are going to wish they were the ones sitting in this chair. As officers entered the room again, Elena looked at the empty glass on the table. Then she said something almost to herself. You know, when they arrested me, I thought my life was over. I paused. And now? She looked up. You offered me a seat and water. I smiled slightly. Sometimes that's all it takes for the truth to start. And for the first time that night, Elena Carter looked relieved.